Hey Justin, how are you?
Hey, Ram, I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing all right, doing all right. We got 70 degrees here in late October, so it's a good day. Halloween is coming soon, so I'm gonna overload on sugar to protect my kids from the sugar. I'm gonna do my part as a dad. Teach them
Absolutely.
taxes. I'm really teaching them taxes as well. I provide security and protection for them and rule of law and shelter and basic care and a lot of services. And the method of payment for that is the taxation of the hard-earned chocolate that they're going to collect.
Absolutely. Do you have a favorite candy?
Oh, yeah, of course. I like 100 grand. I know that's going
Okay.
out of style, but I think that's great. I like Kit Kat. I like Reese's peanut butter chocolate cups. Uh, those are my favorite. How about yourself?
Yeah. Milky Way Dark.
Ooh,
Love
dark.
that.
Okay.
And a Take Five. Take Five
Hmm.
is a money one.
Eclectic decision here. Okay.
And as a child, I loved Baby Ruth. Still do.
Oh, yeah, Baby Ruth. Haven't had that in a long time.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
will also impose a tax.
Of course. So look, this is a great setup for DEXA scans. You, I believe, completed a DEXA scan. All right.
I did one this week. First one I've ever done.
Okay, great. So let's focus on that here today. Well, why don't you just introduce what a DEXA scan is? What was your motivation? And we can get into what you learned, the cost, and any side effects one should consider.
Yeah, so a DEXA scan, it's like a low dose radiation full body scan, and it gives you a detailed view of your bone density as well as your um, lean muscle mass and fat percentage, and it breaks it up over your body. So it can give you a total body view, but it also can break it down to like each arm, each leg, trunk, sections of your torso, etc. So it's a very detailed view that enables you to understand in granular, specific detail how much
Hmm.
fat, lean muscle, and the density of your bones.
Got it. And what's the price of this procedure?
So it was not expensive, actually. It was $90
That's
at
with
the
insurance or
location
just
that I
out of
went.
pocket purchase?
Oh, I didn't even consider whether insurance could cover it. I
Probably
just
not.
found a
I doubt it. I
gym
doubt it.
that did it. Yeah, I didn't think so. So, like,
Got it.
insurance is such a headache on some of these things. I'm like a cash payer on sometimes because it's like the headache is not
Totally.
even worth it.
Totally. Yeah. If it had insurance eligibility, I probably would not have done it, actually.
Yeah.
So, to your point. So, walk us through the experience from preparation to walk through what sensations you might have experienced or not. How long did it take?
So I did no prep work whatsoever, besides obviously just scheduling it. It was at a gym, kind of like a private gym that offers physical training, some PT, and then they had the machine there. And I'm sure it's available at similar type gyms in other places in the country. And the procedure was very fast. You went in. I was assuming I was going to have to get down into like a workout clothes or shorts or something like that, but it was just take all the metal out of your pockets. So, took off belt, took everything else off, slipped off my shoes, and then laid down. And you have to lay still, but only
Mhm.
for a couple of minutes. It probably took, she said it was going to take six. I don't think it took 6 minutes, but you're able to still talk through it, just not, you're advised to not move your arms, move your legs, etc.
So, you're
So
laying down. Do you enter like a tube, like an fMRI, or there's a scan that passes overhead, or?
good question. Yeah, no, not like a tube, like an MRI. You're just laying down, and then there's a scanning arm that
Okay.
scans down your head, body, and then goes all the way down. You can see it scanning left to right as it kind of passes over each section of your body.
Got it. Okay. Very cool. So that takes just a couple minutes or so, and then you're done.
Couple minutes, immediate readout, the results pop up on the screen right away. And then I think different machines and different software have some different capabilities. Now that I know that, I may search for a
Oh.
different location to provide this, because one of the things I was looking for
Hmm.
was a measure of what's called visceral fat, which is the
Hmm.
fat around your organs.
Right.
So you can be deceptively lean and still have visceral fat, which would indicate that you're having fat accumulate around your organs, which is really problematic. This
Hmm.
one had the ability to kind of make some assumptions about that based on a segment of your body, but it did
Hmm.
not have a defined visceral fat number. Now, that may be other places use the same number and just say, oh, that's visceral fat, or this place may have been, and this place may have been honest, or it may be a deficiency. The woman who read
Got
it
it.
said other software
So when you
provides.
call in, you should check for particular metrics. So now you get a visual readout and they walk you through it, or they hand this to you and then you interpret the statistics.
They walked me through it. So spent a little bit of time kind of talking through the different outcomes and showing me how it breaks down across your body and then how you compare to others. Now, the interesting thing in the comparison set for this provider
Mhm.
is that they'll compare you against BMI, which is like everybody. And
Right.
BMI is not very useful if you are if you lift weights and you have a lot of muscle. Even if you have a little bit of muscle, it's not that useful.
Hmm.
And then the analysis ranks you ac- across the cohort of people who have used their machine for
Oh,
percentage
so
fat.
you've got a population panel that comes from a broader sample and then the local machine itself. But does a local machine control for age, gender, etc.?
Good question. So there's some age and gender controls. Uh, Bone density gets you a age against your comparable age and gender, and then they
Hmm.
do an analysis of how you compare to 20 to 40-year-olds.
Ooh, that'd be
That's
a
like
fun
the
one.
standard.
I'd be looking at that versus 20-year-old right away.
Yeah. Oh
What
no,
am I doing?
the whole cohort of 20 to 40
Got it.
for
Okay.
bone density, and then on the fat percentage, it really is a comparison against the people that have used their machine. So it's in their software. And the challenge there is that she's like, look, there are people who are bodybuilders who are coming in here and
Oh
using
yeah.
these machines. And so it's a
Yeah.
self-selecting set of people
They
who are
call this
going in and getting a DEXA scan.
right. This is called like healthy user bias. This is the flaw with asking or measuring vegans about their health traits versus non-vegans. Vegans might have a healthy user bias. You get that selection effect and it's not a real control. So now you get these metrics that are reported out, and what are the stats? So it's like a percentages like visceral fat, BMI, etc.
Yeah, so I've got it right here. I can double check. The the bone density is a score that ranges from kind of 0.696, which is like danger territory, all the way up to 1.604, and that's actually the bone measured density. Um, so that's what they're looking for. The higher, the better. And over time, bone density can decrease, and so you have risk of things like osteoporosis if your bone density is um, low. And typically, in kind of the traditional medicine sense, they'll test, I think, women at 65, men at 70, something late. So you probably
Mhm.
don't have much time to do anything about it if you have low bone density. I'm fortunate I don't. My bone density was quite good, so
Quite
happy
good.
about that.
Quite good. We're talking like 90th percentile plus here, or you feel proud about
Uh,
that?
yeah, no, it was. They said my scoring against young adults was 120%. So I'm
What?
120% above.
Oh wow.
I'm above like the score they want for young adults.
Oh, that's amazing. That's well,
Yeah.
terrific. You're in good shape there.
So I think it's like, you just if you lift enough weight over time, your bone density just increases. Eat calcium, drink milk,
Right. Right.
ice
Right.
cream helps too, maybe.
A little here and there. Right. Cool. So what are the other metrics you pick up then?
Yeah, then the other ones are really total lean body mass, lean muscle mass, your total fat percentage, and then, other tissue. It's just like everything else. And then it gives you a percentage of your fat, and then it breaks your body down. So it tells you how much your fat percentage is per area as well, and muscle. So right arm,
Oh,
left arm,
oh
arms
wow.
total, right leg, left leg, legs total, trunk, and then a couple of regions like they call it the adenoid and the gynoid, which is
Okay.
basically like kind of like your abs, and then your hips and butt is the gynoid.
Got it. And so what matters? Like, where should one focus when you get that result? Where did your eyes go to?
So I thought for me, there were a couple interesting takeaways.
Hmm.
I've had a few minor injuries here and there that have impacted me, and they've always been on the right side of my body, whether it was like a right ankle or a right knee or back pain. And it
Hmm.
came out in the symmetry of my muscle mass.
Really?
So I'm a right hand dominant person, yet my left leg had almost a pound more muscle than my right leg,
What?
and my left trunk had more muscle than my right trunk, and my left arm very slightly, but my left arm also uh, had more muscle than my right arm. So I was like,
Interesting.
that was very surprising to see that.
Does that happen often? Did they give you any guidance around that?
They said there's always asymmetries for
Yeah.
people. I think she said, oh, it's not too far off of normal, right?
Hmm.
But you know, the fact that it was my non-dominant side was a little bit more
Hmm.
interesting. It kind of reinforced my own understanding of, hey, you've got some issues on your right side, and you probably overcompensate when you're doing things like deadlift or squat, which then leads to injury.
Right.
So it's like I want to make sure I'm preventing injury. I don't really care about the balance for balance sake, other
Yeah.
than the fact that imbalance could lead to injury.
So you'll be more conscious now that you have that awareness. You got this measurement. And how do you think it compares, at least on the BMI component, to old school techniques for measurement? I know it doesn't have the bone density, but on the BMI, did you say, oh, gee, that's kind of what I would have expected to have seen?
Well, I mean, by definitions of BMI, I'm overweight, right? So I
So
don't,
BMI is already wrong and flawed in principle.
in principle, BMI is just flawed. So,
Yeah.
for instance, I'm overweight in BMI based on my height and weight. And I think my body fat percentage is in a range that most people would be very, very happy with and would not think you're overweight at
Right.
all.
Right. You
And then, like,
confound the BMI.
weight, if you're really like a bodybuilder, for instance, she talked to me about this. She's like, they have a person that comes in when they're in training. It's like 220 pounds of lean muscle on like a 250, 260 pound person. They said they're off the chart obese based on height and weight,
Wow. Yeah.
but the
BMI
person
is
has
awful.
single digit body fat.
Wow. BMI is just totally inaccurate. What a waste of time.
It
Interesting, fascinating.
really
So,
is.
okay, so you have a potential intervention in how you work out. Are there any other takeaways that might inform your living in any way, diet, exercise, whatever else might
Yeah,
be?
so I'd say two other takeaways. One is I hadn't actually thought about bone density, and I'm fortunate everything's fine. But the process reminded me that my grandfather had osteoporosis later in life. And I recall that I was told, oh, they didn't really test men for osteoporosis and calcium deficiencies. And so, he kind of ended his life really hunched over and then ultimately
Mhm.
wheelchair bound. And so that made me think, oh, okay, I'm on top of it. Everything's fine. So it won't change anything, but it was good info. And then the other thing that will change it, and this is probably a more vanity based metric, is everybody carries their weight differently and carries their kind of like stores fat in a different area of the body. I know for me, I don't store it in my stomach. I store it in my hips and butt, right?
Mhm.
So for me, I know that I look really good if I put on a swimsuit and I'm like going to the beach or the pool because I don't store it there. And so
Right.
oh, geez, I'm looking great. I must be really low in body fat. And I was higher than I anticipated based on just pure visuals. So if you look at like the internet and it says, oh, like what does it look like? And they show like a muscled person going from 20 to 18 to 15 to 12 to 10, they're showing somebody who might store their fat differently. So you might say, oh, I'm not looking like that because you store it in your stomach, but maybe you're actually getting leaner. Or the reverse, you might look like that and you store it in different areas. And so for me, I realized, okay, I could lose a little bit more fat without being extreme, right? Because I don't want to take anything to the extreme. And so taking off my shirt, I feel like, oh man, I'm doing
Right.
great. I don't need to
Right.
do anything
Right.
else. This is looking good. But I realized like actually, oh, there's a little bit more if I really wanted to push it that I could.
Right. So now you've got a benchmark. And would you go back for another test every half year or once a year? Or how do you think about that? And are there any radiation effects to consider here?
So actually a very interesting question around how often you will go back. The person ended the meeting said, well, now you have a baseline. It gets really interesting when you take, 2, 3, etc. Some people go back every year to check on it. Some people go back more frequently. And she said, well, now if you implement something, maybe you come back after 3 or 6 months to see if the implementation of a new routine had any effect. And I thought, well, now I have to decide if I'm going to implement something.
I like that. I like that.
And
Yeah.
so I am thinking about it, because I might want to get more balanced in my lower body. I might want to build up the strength in my right leg more to prevent future injury. And so I could see now, 6 months from now, hey, I did this for a 6-month stretch. Did it actually do anything? So that's the way I'm thinking about it.
Right. And it's a relatively quick procedure. So, hey, why not?
Very straightforward.
They
have some data on the radiation, by the way, that you mentioned. So I think they said it's like 1/20th the radiation you would experience on a flight from like DC to Melbourne.
Okay, it's not much.
So like very minimal.
Right. Gotcha. Okay, cool. Are there any privacy issues? I mean, you have this data, they're showing you against other people with a lot of data. How do you protect your privacy?
Yeah, I honestly didn't think too much.
You want to be on the scoreboard, Justin. You're like, yeah, let's post those numbers there. I'm on the leaderboard.
Post those numbers. Post those numbers. Yeah.
I'll show you
my percentile against their
right. The downside of your left leg being stronger than your right leg is not going to have a material negative consequence on your well-being. So maybe that was not a real issue, right?
I think, in the future, though, there are considerations, if you're doing this through insurance or your insurance providers, things can be differently interpreted. I don't know if anybody's going to figure out that I did this at some private gym. I'm sure it's probably stored on their server. And
right. Well, the risk is if your insurance provider can access that data and then underwrite you against risk factors like osteoporosis that might be identified or visceral fat. So controlling that, or at least asking to protect against that, might be worthwhile. On the other hand, like if you've got great stats, maybe you want to reveal that it appears well ahead of your cohort. So
unfortunately, I don't think insurance is going to lower my premiums.
Yeah, I don't think they will, unfortunately, either. We should learn more about that. There, I think a handful of these new insurance startups where they use information like the quantified self-movement to give you a better rate. But you also need people that pay the higher premiums. That's the challenge with insurance, right?
Yeah.
People will opt out of insurance again for the same reason, like healthy user bias. Like, hey, look, I know I'm healthy. I can self-insure, so to speak, and then the pool doesn't work anymore.
Right. I mean, that's exactly why during the Affordable Care Act, there was a lot of pressure to get everybody in the system, because if you don't have everybody in the system as a payer and only the unhealthy opt in, you've got a pool that's really difficult to insure.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Great. Well, this is fun. Anything else you want to share around DEXA? Any other learning?
No, I thought it was cheaper than I anticipated, faster and less painful than I anticipated. And by painful, I mean there was none whatsoever. I mean, just not even uncomfortable getting in. And I think that the information really is powerful. If you're a data-driven person, super interesting data. I don't want to get lost in the numbers and only focus on the numbers, but they do have impact. And if it can drive you in the right direction and you don't get neurotic about it, then I would be all in favor of DEXA scans.
Very cool. I intend to get one myself. I think it makes for a great gift for a friend that is mature in life, has what they want. This is a nice little novel idea that they may not have thought of. Holiday season coming up. So there you have it. All right. Shall we call it a wrap?
There we go. Let's call it a wrap. Thanks, Ron.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.